Hi everyone. So I'm here to talk about building the SDR career path. I'll set the scene. It's 2020. We're a few months into the pandemic, and an SDR who had been at Aircall for about 6 months, they just started hitting their target quite consistently, and they came up to me. Well, they came up to me on Zoom and said, "I would like to apply for a role as an AE." And I sat very calmly, of course, as you would, and a lot of things came into my head. They'd only been there for 6 months. They hadn't had any experience before. They were more experienced SDRs who were performing better, and they probably had a great set of competencies at that time. And these actually weren't important points. They were all superficial. What it made me realize was that maybe we'd done something wrong. So instead, I asked myself this set of questions. Had we set the wrong expectations for career path timelines? Had we not made it clear what competencies would be needed to move to AE or other roles for that matter? Were we not fulfilling a learning and development need in their current role? And finally, importantly, were we paying our SDRs enough relative to our AEs? So we went away and we looked at these questions in more depth, and we worked very hard. And the result, I honestly believe, I thought about this when I was writing it, but I honestly believe I will never be faced with the same scenario with an SDR again. Say it quietly, but I believe we might have cracked the SDR career path. So how did we answer those questions? Well, I'll go question by question. Firstly, had we set the wrong expectations for timelines? Short answer was yes. In the past, SDRs had moved to AE very quickly. This was dictated by business need. We were growing so quickly that there was often an immediate need for an AE. So we plucked our best talent and sent them to AE. And this had set a precedent that we now had to repair, if you will. And I say repair not because we wanted to hold SDRs back at all, but because it was the best thing for the SDR and the company. We actually tracked this and we saw that quota attainment for AEs that spent more than 12 months in the role was 28% higher than those that spent less than 12 months in the first year. So in fact, we also saw that if you actually spent 18 months in the role of SDR, it was nearly 40% higher quota attainment in your first year as an AE, which is quite significant. So what we did was we introduced a minimum period that you must spend in the role. The period could be reduced if you had relevant experience in the previous role at another company. But by setting this base level of expectation, it meant SDRs knew exactly where they stood and what sort of timeline they should be working towards. And now the second question, have we not made it clear what competencies the SDRs would need for AE or other roles? And again, I'll be honest, we hadn't really made it clear enough. We knew the competencies that they needed to succeed in each role, but we hadn't aligned these competencies. So we created from this a competency framework, which meant each SDR knew exactly what they would need to work on in their current role to put themselves in a position to apply for the next role. We also built a scoring system for these competencies with a benchmark that you had to reach to progress. It kind of gamified the career path, which also, for the competitive SDRs, gave them something else to aim for, aside from just the demos that they were booking each week and month and day, hopefully. And the question of competencies actually links to that third question I mentioned before. Were we not fulfilling a learning and development need in their current role? Again, I'll say no. Honestly, we had a good thing going. I'm making it sound like it was shit, but it really wasn't. Yes, we were training. We were doing lots of training. We had one-to-ones, but there wasn't enough structure. So alongside the competency framework, we also built out a career development plan. So SDRs could work on these competencies week by week. In fact, 82% of SDRs in the UK said that they wanted more learning and development in their role. This was on a study that we did with Gong and SalesWorks. But Aircall surveyed our own SDR team last month. Only 2% said that they wanted more learning and development. I honestly believe the best way to maintain momentum in a career path is to maintain momentum in learning and development. But is that enough? Because finally, were we paying the SDRs enough relative to the AEs? And I feel like this might be the question that will probably make people sit forward a little bit more. There is so much that goes into pay in general, and you have to do benchmarking against other companies. There's the split of base and variable. I think all the BDR managers here, in a sense, are really competing for all the talent amongst ourselves, and pay can play a big part. But there is also the question that once you have this talent, is there too big a gap between SDR and AE pay? Or another way of looking at it, have you created a path that is long enough for an SDR to want to stay in their role for more than 18 months? For us, the answer at the time was no. The AE remuneration kind of meant monetarily, the SDRs always had one eye on AE. So what do? We extended the career path. We previously had 3 levels, but we added a 4th, which we called expert. I don't know if anyone's put that on the LinkedIn, expert, but and the expert level was reached after 18 months in the role on average, and it saw a great increase in base and variable. We also introduced a new equity grant for SDRs that reached this level. So it basically meant an expert SDR could be earning as much as an AE easily or more. And what do we ask for those that reach level 4? We ask for a 12-month commitment, 12 months at least in the role, earning just as much as you would as an AE, continuing to develop the skills that will set you up for the rest of your career. And yes, the SDR role is that important, so don't undervalue it. And I'll finish on that point. If you don't create an effective career path with timelines, competency frameworks, career development plans, and fair pay, SDRs might start looking at the role as a stepping stone. And the SDR role should not be rushed. It's honestly the greatest opportunity that you can have to hone skills that will set you up for the rest of your career. I mean, I spent 2.5 years as an SDR before I ever did a demo. I was speaking to Richard Smith from Refract last week, and he spent 3 years in SDR. The SDRs really need to trust the direction of their journey rather than just the speed. And it's honestly your duty as a BDR manager to build a career path that means they can do just that. Thank you very much.